Thank you for tuning in to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. It is now time for Side by Side, where we focus on issues relating to conflict, peace, and security. I am Reverend Father Robert Achiaga. Kaduna was founded by British colonialists in 1900. The first British governor of northern Nigeria, Sir Frederick Lugard, made it the capital of Nigeria's former northern region in 1917, a status it retained until 1967. Sir Lugard paid remarkable attention to its development due to its proximity to the Lagos-Kano Railway. By 1967, it was created North Central State, which encompassed the modern Katsina State. Kaduna State achieved its current borders in 1987, becoming the fourth largest and third most populous state in the country. It is also known as the center of learning, owing to the presence of numerous important educational institutions, such as the famous Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. Kaduna State remained a melting point of ethnic and religious groups, economic and educational activities, politics, and culture. It had one of Nigeria's biggest oil refineries and a formidable textile industry. Perhaps by design, it was to be the most secure state in the federation, owing to the presence of the most elite defense institutions in the state. These include Nigerian Army School of Legal Services in Basawa, Zaria, Nigerian Defense Academy, Nigerian Army School of Artillery, Kachia, Nigerian Army School of Military Police, Nigerian Army School of Infantry. You can name them. Retirees from civil service those years would often go to live in Kaduna. Various ethnic groups and religious tendencies felt at home there, and it was truly a cosmopolitan state. But all these began to change over time. Today, the city of Kaduna is visibly and functionally divided along religious and ethnic lines. North of River Kaduna has a concentration of mostly Muslims, Hausa Fulanis, Kanuris, and like ethnicities. Across the river, where you have the industrial layout, Sabon Tasha, Barnawa, and so on, you have a concentration of Christians, both indigenous and non-indigenous. Why is that, you may ask? Well, Governor El-Rufai says the cause is simply and squarely religious intolerance. That is his opinion, but not everyone believes it. There are, of course, other opinions. Many wonder what he has done about the situation. Some even think he might have made it worse. Whatever anyone or any group thinks or says, they all need to be heard. And that is why on Side by Side, the topic for our discussion segment today is Perspectives on Peace and Security in Kaduna State. I am joined in the studio by Reverend John Joseph Hayab, the chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria in Kaduna State. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you, Father, for having me, and our listeners, thank you.
And very soon
we'll have a wonderful time together.
Thank you, sir. Very soon we shall be joined by Imam Umar Yanda Aliyu, the chief Imam of Bin Affan Mosque, also known as the Banex Mosque, Wuse to Abuja. Now, our guests will help us unpack this topic. But before we get started on that, let us take a look at a few headlines of interest, and we'll begin from the foreign scene. 6 soldiers, 20 injured in Mali terror attacks. Now on Sunday morning, the Mujahideen of the Katiba of Masina struck 3 bases of the Malian armed forces, namely Sevare, Niono, and Bafo. Katiba of Masina belongs to the group to support Islam and Muslim, GSIM. It is an Al-Qaeda-linked alliance and the biggest jihadist network in the Sahel. Also, another headline says, 5 soldiers, others die in Burkina Faso military unit attack. So, Reverend Hayab, in Africa, we are getting these headlines about terrorist attacks, both in Burkina Faso, where 5 soldiers were killed, and also in Mali, where soldiers did not only die, but also 20 people were injured. Mali, interestingly, happens to be one of the most formidable Islamic centers of Africa. What really do you think is promoting these terrorist attacks?
Thank you very much. I think the spread of Islam, the spread of different terrorist organizations in East Africa, North Africa, and now in West Africa has begun or has actually gained much instead of being weakened. Effort by previous government and even current leadership has not done enough to weaken them. I remember very well that the very night people were jubilating that Muammar Gaddafi has been killed. I addressed some few medias. One, to be specific, is the Dutch Welle. And I told them, I'm afraid that the death of Muammar Gaddafi may turn out to be a disaster for us. And they asked me why, and I said simply, I don't need to be so academic in this. These guns that these young boys are busy testing and showing their might with, where will they take it to? Where will it end? Who will they transfer the weapons to? Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and many parts of West Africa have gotten their share of it, just as Nigerians haven't had share of those weapons. And you see, terrorist ideology and terrorist strategy is always to put fear and weaken the official state actors. And so when they kill and injure such number of military personnel, you can imagine what the civilians would think. Ordinarily, the civilians are supposed to run to those military personnel for protection, but if you are thinking that this man will protect you, you can see that he's also been killed. You can see that we've also injured many of them. Similarly, in other countries. So I think that is exactly what is going on. Some years ago, there was this story and video that went viral of the commander-in-chief of Niger even dressing in army uniform and taking the fight to the bandit themselves. Because the commander-in-chief just felt that the best thing to do and give my people some level of confidence is for them to see me fighting. So these terrorists, these criminals, and whatever name you may choose to call them, will continue to do havoc, not only in Burkina Faso, not only in Mali, not only in Chad, not only in Nigeria, in every country where leaders have refused to actually understand their models of operation. Because this is purely to tell you, we're going to be discussing Kaduna later, but you know, something happened some months ago in Kaduna. This is just part of the strategy. If we can go to the army and kill them, if we can go to the military base and even kidnap a military officer, ordinary Hayab, who is just a mere pastor and the best he can offer is prayer, or ordinary James or Mustafa.
How about ordinary me?
You may not be father, you may not be ordinary. So let it be just me because I'm ordinary. So you can see the psychology.
Sure.
And you know, before you know, people begin to be afraid of them. You've heard that in some part of Nigeria, certain communities even have to go and negotiate with terrorists, be giving them money just to keep them away from coming to terrorize them. That's exactly what is happening in Mali. That's exactly what is happening in Burkina Faso. So we are in a deep problem because the giant of Africa is already being threatened. And those minor countries that probably, if we have big challenge, some can go and hide there, are also not safe. Where do we go?
Well, It's very obvious that with terrorism, the most important component of battles is the psychological, such that in terrorist activities, battles are either won or lost first at the psychological level.
Exactly.
And any nations that allows itself to be drained psychologically has already lost its battle.
You can see how they work in Afghanistan.
Yes.
When they realized that the military fight, open confrontation will not give them, they took years and they just crumbled the administration when people least expect. Today, we're in a new story there.
Well, in Nigeria, this also has some implications because in places like Kaduna, in Borno, in Maiduguri, and many other places, look at even the southeast, where the discussion has not exactly been about terrorists, but unknown gunmen, security personnel, police stations, divisional police stations, and other force bases have been targeted, razed down, killed. And all of this is not merely to weaken the morale of security personnel, but also it's about weakening the state, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the issue in the southeast, we have to really look at it holistically. What went wrong? It started more like an agitation, calling for either a referendum to declare a Biafra Republic or for Nigerian government to recognize that the Igbos are Nigerians and they have a stake in what happened in Nigeria. Because I put it this way, I think Nigerians know very well that there are two voices coming out of there. Some whose agenda is, no, we exist. Then those whose agenda is, we don't even need to negotiate anymore. We have had enough of this. Unfortunately, these agendas are being played in different phases. One, they hit at federal government or government establishment like the security forces, and also hit at citizens who ordinarily are just looking for their daily living. You remember some months ago, the stories we used to hear is about some curfew or you don't even sit at home order. And you ask yourself this question: we are on two governments, that some people can just tell a whole citizens to sit at home on a particular day, and whoever refused to. About a week or two ago, there was this part of the story that came out quite frightening, that some people even went to just validate their voters registration or get voters registration card, and this gunman came and shot at them. And from the videos, they were even saying, we are fighting for you, and you are coming queuing up here because you want to get voters registration. So there are so many versions and so many angles to that story. And so sometimes one have to be really, really careful about it. My take about it is simply, the federal government of Nigeria didn't do well when this whole thing started. So if you call them unknown government, you remember the federal government didn't even know who they were dealing with and even called them terrorists. So many other things went on wrong. There was no clear-cut understanding of what exactly is this agitation all about, how do we come to resolve this agitation, and we just started tagging them names. And at the time we were giving them names, we had similar, even worse situation in some part of Nigeria. Let me put it clear, in the north of Nigeria, we were scared at that time to even call those who were doing the same evil in the north any name. So it just makes those people harden. So a lot needs to be done, because with this kind of uprising, more groups are going to come up if nothing is done to address this. But sadly, innocent citizens are being killed every day, innocent lives are being wasted every day, and other unfortunate things are also happening. Remember, there was even an attack on the prison, and you can ask yourself, who exactly were the groups that did that? If you listen to the political group in that area, they just come out and be accusing themselves, accusing each other, accusing political opponents, and just make a serious matter look so childish. Because when such terrible things happen, and you cannot use the place of the law, neither can you use diplomacy or certain measures to find out what exactly it is, and you just find anybody who do not share any political view with you and accuse him, it makes nonsense of a serious matter. So these things are real, and you know today in Nigeria, we are battling with many other problems. One of the problems in Nigeria is that in the past 2 decades, we lost it about child upbringing. A good number of our adults are either drug addicts, not only drug addicts, a good number of adults lack basic home training. And we still have them in the society. They are the ones who by age now are qualified to have gotten voters card, by age now who are qualified to have vote or be voted for, but sadly, they are even a terror to themselves and to the community that is supposed to protect.
If I'm to paint a general picture of all you have said here, what comes to my mind is this, that whether it is as a result of terrorist activities or unknown gunmen, as they are called in the southeast, or leadership failure, whether at the federal level or state level or local level, or as a result of failure in child upbringing, all of these factors work together to create a situation whereby we have a weak state.
Exactly.
We have a weak social environment. We have, and all of that impacts our security.
Of course.
Well, we have some other interesting headlines from our home front in Nigeria here. And the first says, monitor your children against drug abuse. And that's coming from Mr. Ajayi, Assistant State Commander of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, Enugu State. You were just talking about
and let me just put
the
it this
drug
way.
issue.
The fact that the challenge of drug abuse in Nigeria today is not about children. A good percentage, I can't even say almost 40% of women, though I don't have a clear statistics to prove that, but I can refer to a few other information that can justify that statistics. Mothers are into drugs. The woman who gave birth to that child is into drug. What do you expect of the child?
How about the father?
How about the father? The father also is into drugs. And these things happen as a result of poor service in the country or poor governance in the country.
But you know,
unfortunately, many parents who could not provide for their families believe that when you go into drug, you will forget the pains and the failure that is happening in your home and enter into it. Look, even among clerics and their children, I have met clerics with experience of this. Look, I took a daughter of one very important cleric when he died to keep her in my house to give her parental care, not knowing that long before her parents died, she had seen them taking this and she joined in taking it, until one day I traveled with my wife out of this country and I asked one of my staff to go and pick something in my house, and when they arrived, the house was smelling something else. But my staff was patient enough to wait for an hour. Who is in this house? Why is this house bringing out such a terrible smell? And this lady came out and she couldn't believe it. She told us, but you know, we have to take our time to make findings. The day we eventually find the truth, we realized that she wasn't alone. She has her sister, her cousins, and everybody that has connected with her doing it. The fact is that her sister was in a particular home. What she was doing was that when they cook, she would apply some of those things in the food until one day a small girl ate and almost died. Then the house started investigating. So what I'm saying is that it has gone beyond just children. It is happening among adults, parents, mothers, fathers. So when you really want to talk about drug addiction or drug abuse, it's a holistic thing. About a year ago, if I have my statistics correct, we were told by the 7th that in Kano alone, tramadol or whatever they call it, was moved to that state in million cartons. Did they arrest them? And they were consumed within a short time, in millions. So you can see someone is making money, destroying the future of Nigeria, destroying even the homes of Nigeria. And we are having these problems to continue to confront as we talk about insecurity in our country.
Yes, the drug problem has become most topical in the past 3-4 years. I remember a BBC documentary that was done on the consumption of drug substances like codeine.
Codeine, yeah.
You know, it became so topical. And maybe we should do a segment sometime soonest about how drug can become the psychological, drug abuse can become the psychological foundation of social dysfunction.
That's right.
Because many of the people who are involved in different kinds of criminality like terrorism, banditry, armed robbery, and many other things, they depend on these substances, which means unavailability of these substances could, to some extent, dissuade them or prevent them from carrying out some of these crimes.
But there's an agency in this country that is directly responsible in ensuring that they block the availability.
Yeah.
But that's another issue.
On this program, we have reported again and again the arrest of people trafficking drugs and all of that. Maybe let us say that in the past 10 years, now that we have Marwa in charge of NDLEA, there is quite some sanity that is being injected into the system.
Well, that is part of the problem. It looks like sanity, but you see, the problem we have with leadership in Nigeria is that very sensitive issues we want to play to the gallery. The larger part of the drugs are still moving. We just get one victim. He is actually a criminal, but in this case, he becomes a victim. And we celebrate it and make it look big. But we are still not doing exactly what we're supposed to do. I travel a lot in Nigeria, and I know what I see. Many of these drug agents on the highway do. They just collect more of offerings. The fact of it is that since they cannot collect the one we collect in church, Father, so they have chosen to be collecting it on the road. I have experiences that sometimes you just ask yourself, is it how we're going to fight drugs addiction, or is that how we are going to fight the distribution and the selling of drugs when those who are supposed to actually defend and protect us are busy collecting offering? Drive along the road and see them. Many of the vehicles they stop, they're just stopping them to collect money. And as long as we don't have committed, and I ask myself, are they really being paid well? Because when you want to send people to do this kind of fight, you have to understand that they can easily be tempted, and do your best to make sure that their welfare is well taken care of, and let there be a sincere patriotism and commitment from their side. If not, we will talk about it, because Marwa has always been someone who is good out there to make big stories. But is that enough to correct it? Because Marwa is just one name. I want to see the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency doing well. I want to see NAFDAC really going after people who are, because the law of this country requires that NAFDAC certify any drug before it is distributed. What happened with Standard Organization of Nigeria? What happened with all those agencies? So many things happening, and so these drugs keep passing on the road, passing on the sea, passing on the air, and reaching to where supposed not to. But we just have one ceremony or one issue to talk and make it look as if there is success. The success is actually too slow for my liking.
I guess the message is, if we personalize the effort, we don't go too far.
That's
so
right.
it's institutionalize the effort, then we go further. We have another headline of interest here. It says, World Malaria Day. Nigeria records 200,000 deaths, loses 646 billion naira yearly to malaria, according to experts. Now, these experts said yesterday that malaria killed and also afflicted 61 million people in 2021 alone. Also, Nigeria, DR Congo, Tanzania, Mozambique put together account for over half of all malaria deaths in the world. There is another headline that says, Wanted bandit terrorizing Benue, Nasarawa, Taraba states, arrested by military.
Let's quickly talk about the malaria, because that other one is very, very important. Did you really follow and see the way and manner the federal government and the Ministry of Health
I can say the NCDC, the National Primary Healthcare Agency, came out to attack COVID. The funds that were put into COVID did not kill 2% of the figure you've just said. COVID did not kill in Nigeria 2% of the figure you 200,000, 61 million people having malaria. You know, sometimes we like playing, as I said earlier about NDLEA, we want to approach things not from the angle of wanting to address it, but just to score cheap political points. To the extent that we will be quoting that the UN said that we did well in addressing COVID. But what about malaria? We've always been with malaria for a long time.
Which is more deadly.
Deadly. The fact is that I know from statistics, and you can Google and check, that malaria kills over 1 million people annually. Well, in a whole month or in a whole year, COVID is struggling to kill, or people will say COVID killed them. Experts can talk about that. But you know, even some of the claims that COVID killed are just said so that we will show that COVID is around. We are not disputing. I'm one pastor who believes that COVID is real. I went and took my 2 jabs. I follow every requirement of the protocol. I didn't compromise. But I find it faulty, the way and manner we acted or we approach COVID, and then we always have malaria that is killing innocent children in the village because there are poor drainages, there are poor sanitation, and you can go on and no people are farming even in settlement, and so mosquitoes still keep having a field day, and they are killing people. Even when we come with programs like distribution of treated mosquito net, we only do them for show. We show few individuals that we've given and show on television. I know very well that as the chairman of Kaduna said, many agencies have come to me and said, look, we are having a program for malaria. We are going to distribute mosquito nets. We are going to do this. It will take you another 6 months before you see them. They'll come again with another, because all they do is to file in records and report of advocacy visits. We've been to Khan. We've discussed with Khan. It's not been to Khan that we want. Bring what you claim that you are coming to distribute, and let's see. But you see, all these things, they will tell you billions of naira that were spent for mosquito-treated nets, and people do not really have it. So what are we really doing to protect or to ensure that our citizens are healthy? Let's not forget that a healthy citizen is a productive citizen. An unhealthy citizen is a dead citizen because he will be busy. Have you been to hospital in Nigeria and find out that 80% of tests that they do in their lab just tell you malaria and typhoid? So what are we doing? Can't we prioritize and understand exactly what our problems are? When we have issues of health challenge, don't we know exactly what our people need? Or we just want to do what the Europeans are doing, what the Americans are doing, what the people, they don't have malaria.
You know, if you stretch this evaluation of our approach to dealing with the malaria question, you would also have to look at the budgetary allocations to the health sector.
Health sector and education sector in Nigeria have actually been having the lowest budget. Even when you hear figures, there's really nothing to write home about, because there are other sectors that when you hear the amount, like the other time, the National Assembly were sharing with Nigerians or speaking, addressing each other, and they claim that the budget for security to the army or to the military was over 400 and something billion naira. And how much was given to education? 109 billion. When you have an ignorant country, then you have an insecure country. When you have a sick country, you have an insecure country. So we budget less for the health of our citizens, we budget less for education of our citizens, then we are budgeting for guns. To kill who? To kill the sick man who cannot run when gunmen comes to attack him, or to kill the ignorant man who, out of ignorance, is thinking that he's protecting his family.
I guess budgeting money to buy weapons is as important as budgeting money to have healthy citizens and educated citizens. So we shouldn't take the other ones for granted
Thank
too.
you.
But we have this headline from Taraba State. It says, Taraba explosions. Ishaku directs security agencies to commence stop and search. Taraba State Governor Darius Ishaku gave the directive following 2 bomb explosions that rocked Ardo, Kola local government area, and Jalingo, the state capital, last week Thursday and Friday respectively. Again about explosion, this time around in Imo State. The headline says, Buhari orders clamp down on illegal refineries. Why? Okay, here is it. No fewer than 100 people were killed on Friday night after an illegal refinery caught fire in the Ohaji Egbema local government area of Imo State. The president described the occurrence as a catastrophe and a national disaster. He consequently directed the nation's armed forces, security, and intelligence agencies to intensify the clampdown on illegal refineries. Illegal refineries have been with us all this while. We have always said things about clamping down,
But we
closing
never
them
do
down.
anything about it.
Maybe
Because
we are not even
illegal
getting...
refineries were not built in one day. They may not be as sophisticated as the main refinery, but those who put them there, those who construct the illegal refinery didn't do that in one day. And all through the hours, no security intelligence, no effort by security agencies to stop them until when over 109 citizens are killed.
Well, my concern is
Before we now begin to talk. You see, that's the problem
by
I
next
have.
week, are we going to remember this happened?
That, exactly. That's the problem we have with our country. When you ask yourself, what is actually the duty of intelligence gathering agencies in Nigeria? Do they actually gather intelligence about all these crimes, all these violations? Because illegal refinery is itself a crime, a violation. What intelligence do they gather? If you dig deep, you realize that probably they got to know about those people and those people also settled them. And everybody keep mute. If not because there was a disaster and lives were lost, this thing can remain for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, and everybody is keeping quiet. So I ask myself, why do we have the NIA? Why do we have the SSS? Why do we have all those intelligence gathering organizations? So that they will know that a criminal act is being committed somewhere in this state or somewhere in this part of the country, and government must act accordingly. Probably they will even tell us that, no, we've actually reported this, but because of bureaucracy, it is still being looked upon and nothing has been done. Do you know what I found out recently? That over 50% of those who are recruited into the Nigerian SSS prefer to guard big men than gather intelligence report for Nigeria. That's why anybody, when you become a governor, when you become a deputy governor, when you become a minister, you will find all those crowd of security around you. The best they know how to do is to block your friend who has not seen you for years and want to shake hands with you. But they are not listening, putting their ears on the ground to know what is happening in Nigeria, what evil is happening in which part of Nigeria, and to do something to avert it. When our children were kidnapped some months ago, last year in Kaduna, part of the question I came asked, where is our intelligence gathering? So this illegal refinery tells you a lot. You talked about the bomb challenge in Taraba. Remember that about 4 weeks ago, we had similar situation in Kaduna. The fact is that I will commend the director of SS in Kaduna because he was smart enough. He quickly called on me and I brought key leaders of the church to meet with him, and we started looking at ways we will help in putting our eyes and taking some security measures, because at that time, 3 bombs were already detected in Kaduna, one in Kabala, another one in Rigasa, and then one where was it in Marabanjos or in Zaria. These things are almost in every part of Nigeria. How could people even have bombs kept in their homes and take it to a community where there is a large crowd waiting for opportunity to exploit and kill Nigerians, and nobody could detect when they even move with those bombs and want to strike? Until when they strike, then we start talking about. If you are talking about stop and search, it's not enough to stop that, because our roads are so poor that there are many other routes that people can follow and come into a city, and you're not going to dictate them. We need more than that. where do these people get their bombs? That we are beginning to find out that bombs are coming up now in Taraba, are coming up in Kaduna, are coming up in Kano, not even in military base, in a highly populated civilian environment.
Anyway, since you mentioned Kaduna, let me take some other headlines from Kaduna State. So this one says Kaduna insecurity. Community can assist with vital information. Religious bodies with prayers. The Kaduna State Commissioner of Police, CP Yekini Ayoko, made this call when a delegation of Ansaruddin Society Kaduna branch paid him a courtesy call. And also in Kaduna, bandits abduct lecturer, daughter, demand 100 million naira. Now, the lecturer, a former head of the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Kaduna Polytechnic, Dr. Ramatu Abarshi, and his daughter, Amira.
Her daughter.
Yes, his daughter.
Dr. Ramatu is a mother.
Oh, her daughter, yeah, Amira, were abducted near Kasuwan Mageni in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State. Let me just run down the other headlines too. Now, AFDB predicts energy food price hikes in Nigeria. Others, a little details. That's according to the president of African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina. He says the costs of fertilizer, rising energy prices, and rising costs of food baskets could worsen in Africa in the coming months as a result of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And lastly, proliferation of vigilante outfits may worsen insecurity. That is according to International Crisis Group. The group said this in its report titled Managing Vigilantism in Nigeria, a near-term necessity, which was released on Thursday. Part of the report reads, while the endorsement of vigilante groups by state governments and citizens suggests that they will remain important security providers, at least in the near future, there are several concerns. Some question their constitutionality as well as their effectiveness. Some vigilantes have also been known to commit grave human rights violations, and more recently, the emergence of ethnically exclusive groups could further strain ethnic or other communal relations. The report further stated, without stronger oversight, many worry the situation could get worse, with further and potentially more egregious abuses, deepening the prevailing culture of impunity and aggravating insecurity. A further concern is the risk that politicians and other elites could enlist vigilante groups for their own purposes detrimental to peace, democracy, and security. Reverend Hayab, vigilantes are the in things now. Communities are encouraged to form vigilante groups. In Edo State, recently, some communities decided to create vigilante groups. And it is already agreeable to even the publishers of this report that we are going to have to need them and use them in the near future. And this is a sign that the official state apparatus for securing citizens is not enough. And that is why you have this. But there are challenges.
It's not enough. The truth about it is that it's just an admission of the failure of the security apparatus that is legitimately, constitutionally empowered to protect her citizens. I am among those who have always expressed fear about vigilante, because the whole concept is just a child of necessity, but can turn to be a thorn on our flesh in the future. Because of the insecurity going on around us, vigilantes started coming up, and some government that couldn't think beyond where their eyes can see felt that that was a cheap way of getting people. Have you really read the report? I think this report was published by Daily Trust, of one of the findings why the violence and the conflict in Zamfara. It is alleged that a group of vigilante called Yanda terrorized the Fulanis either on market days and when their women go to sell fura and nono, and they started now levying them. So in reaction to it, they now resisted them, and it became a fight between they and us, or we versus them. So the whole idea of vigilante, honestly speaking, is not good enough. It's not even an ideal situation, looking at the divisive situation in Nigeria.
And that is
because
why,
if the vigilantes are mostly this tribe, they will fight any other person who is not.
Or if it is just about religion.
Do you really know that most of these vigilantes groups are ethnic in nature, are religious in nature, are regional in nature? Okay, when the Southwest came up with the Amotekum is
I just
purely,
have to break you so that we
Amotekum is purely an ethnic thing. So all these things are part of the problem that they are preparing Nigerians for, because we are coming into this as to be worse than what we are facing at the moment.
And the recommendation from the International Crisis Group is this requires serious oversight. Let us not throw that away.
Exactly. Their recommendation is good, but you see, why do we even have to have them?
Well,
what have we done about our security? I'm going to be talking later when we come, because the deployment of security, even in Nigeria, is a big problem. I've said a little about SSS, and when have you seen that in Nigeria? Let's use Abuja, for example.
Before we use Abuja, we'll take a break. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we shall go right into the discussion segment of today. Please don't go away. Thank you for staying tuned to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. You are listening to Side by Side, where we focus on peace, conflict, and insecurity or security. We shall now have our discussion proper. And remember, we told you the topic for discussion today is perspectives on peace and security in Kaduna State. Perspectives on peace and security in Kaduna State. Our guests again are Reverend John Joseph Hayab, CAN Chairman, Kaduna State, and Imam Umar Yanda Aliyu, the Chief Imam of Bin Affan Mosque, also known as Banesk Mosque, Wuse 2, Abuja. Our listeners, we would very much like for you to be part of this conversation. So you can call on 081 084 47518. Again, the number is 081 084 47518. Call us and share your own perspective on peace and security in Kaduna State. But you could also inform us of security, peace, and conflict developments in your community. We expect you to call. Now, let us begin with the two of you are indigenes of Kaduna State. You know that state very well. So let's begin by hearing from you how your upbringing in your communities in Kaduna State, what it looks like. Give us a sense of how the Kaduna of yesterday that you grew up in appealed to you. Let's begin with Imam Aliyu.
Thank you very much, and permit me, if it is possible, to sincerely apologize for turning up in time.
You're welcome.
And a point of correction as well, that though I'm an indigene of Niger State, and though born in Kaduna State but has left Kaduna and then now residing here in FCT for long. Despite that, the issue of security, the issue of peace has now become a global phenomenon. So wherever you are, and the effort you people are also putting in, has made whosoever wish to know to at least be acquainted with the terrain of some of these things in their own communities and also elsewhere, despite people that reside within that community should tell better because they are within that community. Like my chairman here, who had been in Kaduna and then he can only travel out and come back. So what he will say much, and even the communities that he lives in might not be compared to my own knowledge, which may be very little. But when we talk of, okay.
Hello, good morning. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Okay, we lost that caller. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, when we talk of peace and we talk of security, no meaningful development will ever take place and can never be achieved without peace and security. And this peace and security is a collective responsibility of all. Despite some people are engaged and paid for it, they are human beings like us. We also have our own role to play to make it easier that lives are secured as well as property are also secured. Whenever there is any breach or lagging behind by any part that's supposed to be involved, then definitely we'll have chaos, crisis, and the entire society will become insecure. And therefore, as I said, the issue of security, the issue of attaining peace and tranquility is a collective responsibility of all. It could be tripartite. If we are talking of the children, the family must be involved, where they go to must be involved, and also the larger society. In the years back, as we grew up,
yes,
you will discover that a neighbor, when he sees a child doing anything wrong, he has that right to correct the child and discipline the child, and even the parents coming to appreciate that person.
No matter the neighbor's religion or ethnicity.
Of any affiliation. Where of that now? We've seen situations now where parents, is it because of the love they have for their children, goes to even challenge the people that educate their children. Never you beat my children again. Never you discipline my children again. I know of a scenario where a parent, the two, both the father and the mother, followed a child to the school, challenging the teacher. And when they go there, he wants to prove he's in the authority. He slapped the teacher. That was when. So we got it wrong. As I was listening to my chairman when I was coming, because I put on the radio, he also mentioned some of these things where we have got it wrong. And that is why we are in this dilemma now, trying to here and there, scratching for where we can get solutions to already what we have.
Okay, Imam Aliyu says growing up in Kaduna State, it was an environment where child discipline or upbringing was a collective community affair. But I think growing up has all kinds of dimensions. So let us also hear from you, Reverend Hayab.
Well,
what was growing up like?
Kaduna has always been a home for everybody, a home for every Nigerian. In the background story, you talked about Lord Lugard. But let's come close. After Lord Lugard, when the first regional government was established, everybody in the north sees Kaduna as his home. Whether you are from Yola, you are from Borno, you are from Gombe, you are from Bauchi, you are from Kogi. The fact of it is that there are areas in Kaduna you will assume that there's another branch of Okene.
Wow.
It's another branch of Ofa.
You have many and
It's
one
another
TVs.
branch of Ilori.
No pay.
It's another. So you can go on and on and on and
Yes.
on. So Kaduna was
a home for everybody. So you don't come and beat. I was not born in Kaduna. That's the interesting part of it. I was born in the late 60s in Boko village in Benue State. Then my father served in the army and fought the war.
Did you eat bushmeat?
Of course. I used to eat nyam to, nyam keshu, nyam bo, nyam ke. So I can tell you more of the nyam. But that's for another day. That's the interesting part of it. Then we just only come to Boko town for Children's Day and National Days. Now, my father left the army in 1979. In 1980, we came to Kaduna. But then in Benue, everybody was talking about Kaduna. So for those of us that know that Kaduna is our home, we're so proud that Kaduna is a super place. So we're looking forward with great excitement to be in Kaduna. In 1980, I was privileged to come to Kaduna. I came to Kaduna. At that time, television, Saban Tisha, if you just come to Kaduna and you stop in television, you were not in Kaduna. You need to go to Tudunwada and go to Ungwarimi and possibly move to Kawo, then you've come to Kaduna. There was nothing like Christians, Muslims, or the tribal thing. No, Kaduna was Kaduna. I was privileged to stay with my brother in Kwana Meshai in Ungwansa Anansi, Tudunwada, Kaduna. So I had this taste of that Tudunwada. It was a lively place. The roads were better organized and so on at that time. There was no issue of religious difference or tribal difference. Then I used to visit Ungwankudu, that's in Ungwarimi. They have an estate there. And then, you know very well that government built, or Shagari, when Shagari came into power in 1979, he built the Narai High Coast and the Shagari locals that is in Barna and all those. So people begin to move. And there were also houses and communities built in Kaduna. We were told that we are named in accordance with the countries of Africa because of Festac. You find that in Barna, you find that in Gwarimi, you find that even in Tudunwada and other places. So that's how we live. Later in 1982, we moved to Haimbenki. Haimbenki is another very super place in Kau. Haimbenki becomes like the boundary between the civilian and the military. Because on this side of Haimbenki is the Kotoko barracks. On the other side of the Haimbenki is the Air Force Base. So everything was super. My friends were not Christians. My neighbors were not Christians. The people who go to the school or go to market together were not Christians. I happened to go to GSS Kachia. That was also another experience. I met friends that I could go to the IRK class. Today, when I sit, the other day I was speaking in Abrahamic mission, and they asked me a question when I said something about Islam, and they say, "How do you know it?" And I told them, "I've known this for all my over 40 years ago. I can tell people about this because I learned these things in class, and I didn't have any problem. My father was not afraid I'm going to be a Muslim, and my friends who are Muslims could also come and ask me what we learned in CRK." So that was how we grew up in Kaduna. Kaduna became a place. I was in this same Kaduna when people like Daniel Omokachi became powerful in football, and became, because we were living in Haimbenki. So we can come to the government day secondary school that is situated in NDA to watch some of these great footballers, the Aliyu Sadi and all this, because those are the excitement. There was nothing divisive. Yes, there was a crisis in 1980 in Kaswamagani.
Before we come to the crisis, the picture you paint here is quite romantic. I mean, anybody who listens to this will say, is it the Kaduna that we hear of today? So perhaps let us use our part of our Nigerian phraseology to describe it. The good old days, right?
That's right.
Our listeners, in their numbers, they belong to different communities. Some of them are crisis-ridden. Others are experiencing a lot of peace. When you hear people describe the good old days like this, understand that you who in your communities are experiencing a lot of peace now must constantly be on the watch.
That's right.
So that what Reverend Hayab is about to say next is not part of your own history. Let every community who is having the good present days make sure that when they look back tomorrow, they can see the good old days, but also the good today. All right. So I was going to ask you, we'll begin with you, Reverend Hayab, and then we'll go back to Imam, Yanda, Aliyu. Give us a general picture of the shape of things in your state today. You have described quite detailedly, beautifully, what the state of affairs was as you grew up. And I feel like relocating to Kaduna
Please
State.
come. We're working to bring it back, to bring back the good old days.
But we would also have to want to get a sense of what today is like.
Well, after some change of crisis, attack in Kasamagan in 1980, the Kafanchan College of Education crisis in 1987, and then the Zangon Katap crisis of 1991-1992, which actually were situated in particular places but spread. Then, in 1980 and 1987, Kaduna and Katsina were one state.
Metatsine?
No. Metatsine was not much a Kaduna thing. Metatsine was much a Kano thing. Kaduna didn't have much experience of Metatsine. But the crisis of Kasomagani was the first in Kaduna, and then the College of Education Kafanchan crisis, where it was alleged that Christians planned a crusade, and then the Muslim students felt the caption of the crusade shows as if the campus belongs to Christians.
Now,
Things started.
Will we get, because you see, when Governor El-Rufai tells the history of how things came to be what they are today, he harks back to 1980. As that time, the 1980s.
From 1980 to this current situation, Kaduna experienced 1 to 40 different ethno-religious disturbances.
Good.
The one that brought about where we are today is the Sharia violence.
The point I'm going to make is this. By different accounts, 1980s stand as that timeline during which things started changing drastically in Kaduna State. So I am hoping to get your perspective on what those changes were, and also to get Imam Aliyu's perspective on what those changes were. In the meantime, let us quickly take a break to say a prayer, then we will come back. Thank you for staying tuned to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. You are still listening to Side by Side. We went on a prayer break, and now that we are back, we will continue our discussion on perspectives on peace and security in Kaduna State. Remember, if you want to be part of the conversation, the number to call is 081-084-47518. The number again is 081-084-47518. Now, Reverend Hayab, before we went on that break, we said we were going to zero in on the 1980s to see where things started changing, what was wrong, why things took a turn for bad, but you were already talking about it, so you can go and identify those.
Quickly, what went wrong was that we started calling ourselves names.
Okay.
In the past, we were neighbors, we were brothers, we were friends, we were colleagues, we were classmates.
Okay, we have a caller. Hello? Okay, sorry, continue.
So when we started calling ourselves names, you start hearing Arni and infidel. People calling each other's ungodly and unprintable names. Then we started planting in the psyche of children that these ones do not belong to us, these ones belong to us.
Okay, we have a caller. Hello? Hello, good afternoon. Please, can you move a little bit away from your radio? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, we had difficulty with that call. Sorry.
So when we started calling ourselves names, then another part of it that came up was that religious leaders started taking side, preaching and teaching division among people. Then the third group came up. And when the political class saw that
we're already calling ourselves names. Our preachers are beginning to preach division. Then they just came in between, took advantage of those two mistakes we've done, and using religion, they further divided us.
So you acknowledge that religion
of course,
was the bedrock
of
this change.
Because you couldn't have called someone an Arni because of language. It was more from religion, because an Arni means someone who is an infidel, who does not know God. You couldn't have called someone as a Christian an unbeliever. Pastor started quoting, do not have unequal yoke. We don't believe.
Not be unequal
yoke. We don't believe. So all these things started coming. Then religious leaders came in.
Was it at such a massive level?
Yeah, it was at massive level because between 1980 to 1987, that this division became so glaring. Then a very prominent religious leader in Kaduna, which came out and even said, look, religiously, his religion do not allow a woman to lead him or a non-person from his faith to lead him. That sparked up a new movement. I remember that for the first time, people started now ganging up on the basis of religion to vote who they want and who not they do not want. The example for people who have lived in Kaduna that I can use, they will remember that that was what brought John Aboki to be chairman of the then Kaduna local government, which is now 3 local governments, because it was Kaduna local government. There was no Kaduna South and North or Igabi. It was just Kaduna local government. So, and it was during the option A4 voting. So religious people now, the fact that religious groups went looking for their own candidates, since the other person have said this, and looking for religious candidates both at the ward, at the local government, then this division became big and big and big. Then came the Zangon-Kata crisis of 1992, which now brought the ethnic angle of it.
Wow. Okay.
Now, as we were moving, then religious came back again in 2000, in 1999 actually, when the whole issue of Sharia came up and further divided us. That was when we begin to have visible segregation. Because all the other ones, we manage them and we still live together. We manage them and we still stay together. But when Sharia crisis came, the havoc that came, that was associated with it, the number of people that were killed, slaughtered, I would say, then segregation came. A large number of people who were living in Rigasa have to move to Sabo. A large number of people who were living in Sabo moved to Rigasa and Tudunwada. Christians who are living in Tudunwada moved to television. And then the only place that today you still have some semblance of Christians in the north is Ungwarimi and some part of Kao, especially Haimbeki. But like in Mwankanawa, I can say 99% of them have moved. You may have 1 or 2 staying, but they are not good enough. And you know, then the division became wider. Children who used to go to school and have other people from other tribes in school now have only people from their tribe and their religion. So everything about their psyche became very limited to the kind of thing they see, the kind of people they meet. So they see any other person who look different from them as an enemy. So that was how this thing grew. Because time will not permit me to give some more detail, but I just wanted to let Nigerians and our listeners know that this thing started from little, oh, you are Arni, you are Muslim, you are Christian. If you are Muslim, you are this. So people calling each other's name. Then physical fight about religious crusade in Kafanchan. Then the preachers now exploit it by saying you don't even need to vote for anybody or accept anybody who is not your faith to be in leadership. And then the ethno problem in Zango, which was more about the market, but because of the difference in tribes and religion, it became big. Right. Then Sharia now became the father of all.
All right. Thank you very much. So, Imam, Yanda, Aliyu, Reverend Hayab told us in the 1980s, religious preachers began to complicate the Kaduna state atmosphere that was so peaceful. And then ethnicity came in. But remember, the program is titled Perspectives, right? So I'm sure you have your perspectives. Our caller who spoke about religious leaders not knowing what they are doing, that's a perspective, right? We want to take all the perspectives. Let us hear from you. What went wrong in the 80s?
Yes, as my chairman, I will always have this as my chairman. I've said it all. The genesis, the beginning of this journey and finding ourselves now in a destination that everybody is now crying out. And I want to make a point very clear that if we are not careful, or one is not careful from the beginning, and you get yourselves divided, we should know that some people are there having their own target they want to achieve and just waiting for a slightest opportunity to penetrate. The analysis given by the Reverend is true, and those are the genesis of where we are, as I have said earlier. It started from not only the Muslims and not only from the both sides. Whosoever does not belong to your faith, you have a unique name you give to the person. So when you address that person with that name, and he got to know the meaning of that name, he feels so downgraded. You will discover that religion, as we all know, is a very sensitive human, let me say, organ. Because even if one keeps a biro here now, and he in his own thinking, this biro is his God, it must be respected. Because all his mindset, everything is on this biro. Any attack you now give to this writing pen now, you are inviting his wrath. You are provocating him. He will do everything possible to protect this which he has assumed to be his God. Then when you are relating with this person, you have to be very, very careful, so as not to go beyond the boundary to which you shouldn't. On that note, when this began to come up, leadership couldn't manage it as it should be managed. Had it been it was managed and well managed from the inception, whosoever was involved, you don't look at his face. You attack it, you attack him, and deal with the situation at hand immediately. It wouldn't have escalated to this level. But when you knew this is the person that started it, and you are now saying, okay, let's manage him, let this, then definitely it will continue to deteriorate and deteriorate and deteriorate.
Thank you very much. You know, on this program, we are taking perspectives. So if the perspectives are not roundly banal, they are perspectives, right? He feels that focusing on language, especially in our security architecture in whatever way, may be counterproductive. I don't want to hold brief for authorities. I am not even aware of that. But you know, some security agencies tend to study some languages in order to understand the cultures of the people among whom they are going to work. I don't know whether that is happening. But
if I understand him, you see, the issue is that in the composition of the security architecture,
yes,
he thinks that we should have blended Nigerian people. East, North, West, Central, call it whatever name, so that in addressing the issue, we are addressing it holistically, and we also have a connect with the people. But if not, then the people would feel alienated, and then sometimes they react to things.
That's a dimension. So, Imam, you were saying...
I was trying to come down to Gidanwaya crisis, down to Kafanchan crisis, then down to Sharia in 1999. You see, what happened then at that College of Education? It would have been very easy. Though people involved were at their youthful age, and we all know the kind of display people within that age will always exhibit. It would have been a sort of managed. Oh, this caption you are seeing is never meant this.
What was the caption really?
Jesus Campus.
Jesus Campus.
You see, I hope I'm communicating.
I was going to joke and say, what if they see a caption that says Jesus rose from the dead like agege bread? The kind of thing that Sterling Bank did recently.
A similar thing happened in Kano in 1990. Yeah, 1990, when Bonke came. The caption was, Jesus will conquer.
Anyway, you are making a very important point that a caption was at the heart of the Kafanchan College of Education crisis.
So, that caption is just a mind, it should have been managed by having consultations.
That's right.
This that you saw is never meant for what you people are taking it to be. We are having a program, we are having this, we are having this, and we are having this. That is why this title is like this. Though, as I said earlier, acknowledging the age bracket of those involved as at that time. And we all knew, because we also passed through the same period in one time or the other. So that is one. The Sharia issue.
Do you mind if I just pass some piece of information to our listeners based on the point you made?
No.
So there is something called conflict communication,
That's
right? Or conflict sensitive communication. You may say something that to your own word makes a lot of sense, but to the word of other people who do not belong to you, it may mean a completely different thing. So we live in a society that is quite delicate today. So if you are writing in the newspapers, on social media, your captions, your expressions, even in public speech, you need to be conflict sensitive. Make sure that the words you're using, the phrases you're using, the captions, they communicate rightly. Thank you very much.
Very key. And even as that, we should also be mindful of individual differences.
That's right.
Individual differences is very, very key. Because my own understanding may not be as sharp as your own. My approach to issues may be slower compared to your own approach to issues. How I take things may quite be different from how you take it. Therefore, tolerance, that is where it is very, very key. When you understand anything from the opposite person, he might be communicating. You may not understand him, but seek clarifications and then give him that respect on whatever information he has given you. Agree with him. Now on Sharia, quickly, of 1999, 2000. You see, as a Muslim, and looking at what is happening today in our society, all these things, if religious leaders are involved, as they should be involved, so many things will go right. Sharia is just a name, it's a law, which I knew, even in the Bible, is there. How do you regulate social interactions among people? There are certain issues that are conventional, universal. Nobody will ever agree to that, like stealing. No religion, no culture will ever agree to stealing.
And killing.
And killing. I hope I'm communicating. Whosoever kills, like the people, what I heard my chairman saying when I was on my way coming, drug addiction, even those that kills now, is because they are what? Drugged. If not, I can see you now and show you a gun and say, I am killing you. And to terminate this, like in our own Sharia, whosoever kills should not be spared. He should be killed. Because if he values human life, he shouldn't have taken that life that he did not create. I don't know whether I'm communicating. Sure. So these are some of the perspectives in Sharia, which is, I'm repeating, is to the Muslims. You don't kill until certain conditions again are fulfilled. It's not by mere saying, I want to kill, or this person have killed. Then you now decide. to go and attack another person. It's not. There are certain conditions. Some of these conditions is not going to be an individual that will now say, I am doing this. It must go to court of law. Established that yes, what he did, he intentionally did it. But a situation where somebody came and showed you a gun and you are having your own. Showing you a gun means he wants to what? Kill you. If you have something to defend yourself, in the course of that defense, you now kill the person, you cannot be held responsible because he had wanted to do the same thing that happens to him. So the issue of Sharia, where we got it wrong then, we should have just sit down in the round table. I was listening to one of the clips recently of Yeriman Bakura, governor of Zamfara State then, who initiated, who came up with the issue of Sharia then. They granted, is it BBC that he granted BBC an interview. And in that interview, President Obasanjo then tried to at least resolve it and limit such to the barest minimum as possible. He was giving the narrations that even this governor of Plateau State, that was the governor then, Joshua Darie, he now said, okay, hence this is coming up in Zamfara. He himself in Plateau, he is going to come up with, I don't know the name you call canon law. Governor of Zamfara says, beautiful. The day you are launching it, invite me, I will come. If what is contained in canon law is what you are going to implement. So what I'm trying to say is, in all the two major religions, we have a binding laws, principles upon which they are established. What I will not subscribe to is a situation where you say you are compelling the people of other faith that your own must be, limit your own to your own religion, let another person limit his own to his own. So communication gap now came in. Sharia. So you want to turn this place to be a Sharia state. We will not agree. Tolerance comes in.
Let me be sure I get the point you are making.
Okay.
The idea of canon law is home within the Catholic Church.
Okay.
I am a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
I have a congregation that I pastor.
No.
I do not pastor that congregation based on my whims and caprices and personal predispositions. Canon law, which is a body of law that you may call, in a sense, the constitution of the Catholic Church, determines how
you should go about it.
I go about my business as a pastor.
No.
But do you know, when I leave the Catholic Church and I come to the Christian Association of Nigeria, how I function there as the treasurer of CAN in the FCT is based on the constitution of CAN. And when I have interreligious dialogue with Muslims, those days with Cardinal Onaikan, we are guided by consensus. The Sultan of Sokoto and Cardinal Onaikan, for instance, are great partners in interreligious dialogue. So, how do we have a situation whereby Sharia law can operate within the Muslim fold exactly the way canon law operates within the Catholic Church? Is that what you're saying?
Any Muslim that you might meet, Sharia is accepted as a universal law.
Is it universal in the sense that once anybody lives in a territory where Muslims practice it, they are also bound by it?
I'm coming. Let me clear the situation very well.
I actually want to be cleared, yes.
You see, Sharia, as I said, as a Muslim, wherever I go to, whatever is contained in Sharia is binding upon me. You as a Christian, if you happen to be in a community where Muslims live and the Sharia is be in operation, you will never be compelled to be a Muslim. One, you will never be denied. Rather, you will be protected to practice your own faith